Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. With us now is John Fonte, Senior Fellow and Director of the Center for American Common Culture at the Hudson Institute. He is the author of Sovereignty or Submission: Will Americans Rule Themselves or Be Ruled by Others? Mr. Fonte has testified before Congress on immigration, assimilation, citizenship naturalization, and on civil rights issues. And Mr. Fonte, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Well, as Congress debates immigration reform legislation, many argue that our immigration system is broken and needs to be fixed. You conducted quantitative analysis of a new survey data that shows the exact same, citing a large patriotic gap that exists between native-born citizens and immigrant citizens. What is a patriotic gap, and why is this so concerning?
Yes, many people say, well, our immigration system is broken. We hear that over and again, and that's true to an extent. But we argue in this paper that our patriotic assimilation system, the old Americanization system, that's broken. And the way we discovered this was looking at attitudes toward patriotism, toward America. Is America just like any other country, or is it better than other countries? Do you consider yourself primarily an American citizen or a global citizen? We looked at these among American citizens, native-born citizens, people born in the United States, and naturalized citizens, immigrants that became American citizens. We found a huge patriotic gap of about 20 points, with the native-born citizens being a lot more attached to the patriotic symbols of the United States than immigrants, which is often the exact opposite of what you've heard. So why this is important, of course, is our whole assimilation, our immigration system was based in the idea that someone becomes here, becomes a loyal American, and becomes just like anybody else. And that's the way it worked for probably the first 200 years of our history.
Right.
So this is an enormous problem.
Now, Americans are overwhelmingly generous toward immigrants and new citizens. In fact, the Heritage Foundation's Jim DeMint says that legalizing 11 million illegal immigrants will cost American taxpayers $6.3 trillion in benefits, everything from health care, unemployment, Medicare, and so on. How can a patriotic gap exist despite such overwhelming generosity?
Well, our analysis, and this is the paper for it, by the way, it's available on the internet. Our analysis examines what's going on in the last 40 years. We haven't promoted what we used to call Americanization or patriotic assimilation, patriotic integration of immigrants. We promoted multiculturalism, bilingualism. We taught them that they're separate. They're not primarily Americans. They're, a Latino American or an Asian American or something quite different. They're not just simply Americans. So we've essentially failed in this project of trying to integrate and assimilate immigrants. We've sent them the wrong message. So I'd say that's certainly one of the key reasons. In the past, we did send them the right message, and also there was an immigration cutoff, if you remember, in the 1920s, which allowed time for this assimilation integration to take place. The great World War II movies, where we see the Italian and the Polish and the Jewish guy and the Slovak and Mexican and everybody there together. That occurred after a strong period of Americanization, where we emphasized assimilating immigrants, and also where there was a cutoff. So we permitted sort of this assimilation to take place. It's a lot different now.
So what is your position on the bipartisan immigration reform legislation? And if you were in Congress, would you vote for it?
Absolutely not. I think it would make the situation a lot worse, because it does nothing about patriotic assimilation. Of course, it actually weakens our enforcement. One of the purposes of the bill supposedly is to have serious enforcement, so then we can say, okay, the people are here, they can be amnesty, but we have to have serious enforcement. This actually weakens enforcement. I'll give you one quick example. Right now on visa overstays, people are coming in the country, there's supposed to be a check on when they enter and when they exit the country. Congress passed this law in 1997, 1996, so 17 years ago. We have this law on the books, and it's been passed 5 different times. The new law that's been proposed, the Schumer-Rubio law, would check people leaving the country at airports and seaports, but not land ports. So it's actually a weaker law than the one that's on the books now, which is not being enforced. So no, it's weaker on enforcement. According to Heritage, it's going to cost $6.3 trillion. would bring in large numbers of people with no assimilation plan. So it would actually, the system is in a sense weak now, it's broken, but there's no point in making it worse.
Let's chat for a second about the Tsarnaev brothers who are accused in the Boston bomb attacks. One of the brothers was a naturalized U.S. citizen, the other was not. Their family reportedly received hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxpayer-funded benefits, and one of the brothers reportedly said that he hated America because he just didn't fit in. What do you make of this?
Yes, well, first of all, this shows the laxity of our asylum system. They were granted political asylum because they supposedly feared for their life. But then they went back to Dagestan, back to Russia, so obviously they didn't fear for their life if they went back to this place. And the current bill, the Schumer-Rubio bill, would actually make this situation even weaker. You'd have 2 years instead of 1 year to apply for political asylum. So what I make of the brothers, Tsarnaev brothers, obviously the assimilation system wasn't working. They've got the wrong message. They're given, political refugees are given welfare, which doesn't make any sense. So it's wrong on all counts, and obviously there was no real attempt to the person that did become a citizen. He took an oath, he studied, it didn't mean anything. So that is one of the main points of our poll and our examination. Not that everybody's obviously is not going to become a terrorist, that'll be only a few, but we'll have a lot of indifferent citizens, people that really don't believe the United States is any different from any other country.
Last question for you, Mr. Fonte. In your analysis, you note the differences in methods of integrating immigrants into American society between now and the past century. What does the new method, which promotes more multiculturalism, bilingualism, and affirmative action, mean for the future identity of America?
Well, it weakens American identity because it says you're not primarily American. It would say you should think of yourself primarily as, say, as a citizen of, well, you're now a citizen of the United States, but you're, say, of Guatemalan descent, so you're a Guatemalan, you're a Latino or a Guatemalan American, you're not necessarily simply an American citizen. In the past, people came from Italy, from Poland, from Eastern Europe, and they took an oath of allegiance. I absolutely renounce all allegiance to any prior state. In the current system, people can retain dual citizenship. They still take the same oath, but the oath has become weakened because they can retain dual citizenship. They don't have sole loyalty to the United States. So we have an entirely different system now. It's weakened our national identity, and the way to fix it is to get rid of multiculturalism, bilingualism, to take the oath of allegiance seriously. That would end dual citizenship. Certainly voting in two countries doesn't make any sense. And make a strong effort at Americanization and national identity, and when necessary, perhaps go in the opposite direction of what this bill is and have some immigration cuts, at least for a while, to ensure that this Americanization takes place. So that's what I would suggest.
Mr. John Fonte, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Kathleen.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.